Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lama Life weekly broadcast event with Lama Tsultrim Allione. My name is Drimé and I'm so happy to be supporting you at these gatherings. For the past 10 weeks, we've been able to meet with Lama Tsultrim every Sunday. It's important to recognize and appreciate how unique this opportunity truly is to come together in this virtual way to receive precious teachings that can inspire our daily practice during these difficult times. As a reminder, you are able to access all previous episodes of Lama Life featuring guided meditations through our YouTube channel. Here are just a few guidelines for our time together before I turn it over to Lama Tsultrim. Lama will be answering some of the questions submitted in the form on our website, and we encourage you to submit your questions and prayer requests no later than the Thursday before each event. It's a pleasure to be here with you, so I invite you to share where you are joining us from today. And for those of you who are viewing this event later, your presence here matters too. You can also share this free series with someone who you think might benefit from it. And now I'd like to remind you that you will have the opportunity to offer dana to Lama Tsultrim. I will talk more about what this means toward the end of this event. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit about some upcoming virtual retreats that will be offered at Tara Mandala. These programs will benefit both novice and seasoned practitioners. You can join our mailing list to stay informed. We are pleased to announce a truly special opportunity to receive oral teachings from Venerable Chögyal Rinpoche on selections of the great Tibetan treasure revealing Dakini, Sera Khandro Dewe Dorje's spiritual instructions and advice. The online teachings will be offered weekly from April 20th to May 25th, with the translation to English by Christina Monson. Also coming up is a weekend virtual retreat on April 23rd and 24th called Inhabiting a Boundless Heart, a yoga and meditation retreat. This virtual program is from our Share the Dharma initiative and offered completely free of charge through the generosity of sponsoring donors. In this retreat, participants will explore fundamental Buddhist teachings, learn the meditation practice of shamatha, and experience accessible yoga and movement practices designed to inspire a sense of groundedness and connection. The last virtual retreat that I would like to highlight is called Clarifying the Development Stage of Practice and Deity Yoga with Adzom Gyaltse Tulku Rinpoche and translator Adam Kane. This is a rare opportunity to receive teachings on two profound Mahayoga Tantric texts from Jigme Lingpa and Patrul Rinpoche. These teaching sessions will be offered bi-weekly from May 10th to July 15th. It's a great honor to now welcome Lama Tsultrim Allione. Lama Tsultrim, we would like to request that you turn the wheel of the profound Dharma for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, Drimé. So maybe we can open up the chat and see where people are tuning in from. And I will see if I can see that. Berlin. see one. Luxembourg. Can the participants see that? San Diego. That's where I am. Well, we'll let that click in. So good morning, everyone, or good day, or good evening, or good middle of the night, depending on where you are. So let's take a moment to raise Bodhicitta. That's the heartfelt intention to be together for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Yes. Heartfelt intention. And let's feel our etheric online community. All over the world. And connect with each other. Feel the support of Sangha, community of practitioners. I can feel that. Thank you. I'm with you from Encinitas, California. And I thought today I would actually do the Chöd practice. I'll do the Chögyal Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche Chöd practice. And so I want to invite any of you who know it to get your instruments and join me when I do this. And in the meantime, I will read the prayer requests. So you have some time to get your instruments. I can't see you, so I'm not sure how many people will be doing this. But maybe if you are going to be doing it, put that into the chat so we know. So prayer requests are people who have either sent in the names of someone that they know and love and are requesting a prayer request, or you can request one yourself. And so as I say these names, let's, as an etheric community with a heartfelt connection to Bodhicitta, send out a wave of healing and love to these people on the prayer request list. And I'll be telling their location so you can, in your mind, send it in that direction. The first one is Liam Hobach in Columbia, South Carolina. So Liam. And next is Rose Craben, Grass Valley, California. To Rose. And Manola Antonelli in Paris, France. Paris. Manola. And to Martha Chica, Warsaw, Poland. Martha. Pat and Neil Ward in the UK. and Florentius Farisas. Not sure of the location of Florentius. Okay, thank you. So, good morning again. And I'm going to do, as I said, the Chöd practice, and then hopefully have some time to answer some questions this morning. Before I start the Chöd practice, if you are hearing this for the first time, you can just go into meditation and listen, or you can lie down on the floor or on a bed, wherever you are, and receive it as a healing practice. The Chöd practice is ancient. It's actually has roots in pre-Buddhist tradition in Tibet, in the shamanic tradition. So there's a drum that's like a shamanic drum involved. And this is my drum. I've had this for many years now. There's 12 of these cowrie shells, and they symbolize the links of interdependence. And this is actually a piece of a conch shell that was cut out, and it serves to hold your hand in place during the practice. And then you have the hair of somebody deceased and the hair of a dakini, and then various other ornaments from special sacred places on your drum. And the tail symbolizes the 5 Buddha families. And then I have a string of stones also symbolizing the 5 families. So when you strike the drum, it's the union of subject and object, and the union of masculine and feminine. And so inside the drum, on one side, is the mantras of the 5 female Buddhas, and on the other side, the mantras of the 5 male Buddhas. And so when you play your drum, you're unifying in a state of non-duality the masculine skillful means and the feminine wisdom. And then you use the bell, which many of you are probably familiar with. This is also a symbol of the feminine. It goes with the dorje, which is a symbol of the masculine. And then you have the kangling, which is the thigh bone trumpet that is used as a way of calling the guests. So essentially in the Chöd practice, you undergo your own death and you offer your body to various guests. And first you offer to the upper guests, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Then you offer to the protectors, that's the red feast. And then you offer to the disease-bearing beings, obstacle makers, and debt holders. That's the black feast. And then you offer to all the 6 realms of beings. Those are the 4 guests. And so it's in the black feast that we work with our own demons. Many of you may have done feeding your demons. And so you can also, in that time of offering, you can imagine that one of those demons that you've worked with in feeding your demons, or several of them, are coming to feast from the skull cup, which has had the physical body chopped up and put into it and then transformed into nectar. And it's transformed by having the heat underneath of the ashe, the short ah, which is like the chandali, the female energy of the sun underneath the skull cup. And female and sun are associated together in the tantric tradition. And then above the skull cup is the masculine. And that is the syllable tum, and that flips over and drops down nectar into the skull cup. So sort of like a campfire underneath, heats up, which is the inner feminine that goes up through the body, normally in the Tumo practice of inner heat, but here it's heating the contents of the skull cup, heats it up, steam goes up, this symbol of the masculine flips over and drips into the skull cup, and then that transforms it into nectar, and then you invite the yes. So that's a very, very brief explanation of the Chöd practice. I hope some of you will be joining me. I'm not seeing messages still, so I don't really know. But that's all right. I don't need to see them. So what I suggest now is that you, if you're going to be receiving the Chöd, that you get into the position that you'd like to be in for that. And if you're doing it with me, that you get everything ready. Okay. All right. So we'll begin now. Push this back a little bit so I can see my text.
Om Dare Dare Bendare Swaha Jaya Jaya Siddhi Siddhi Pala Pala Ahasha Sama Mama Kolim Samenta. So that's a true practice. As I was doing it, I wanted to talk about a line in here, 2 lines. And it is Misun Ladre Gyula Kene Kyang Ngarzen Trupa Jesu Mi Trengwar. It's toward the end of the practice. And it means even though wild gods and demons emerge from the mind stream, self-clinging and illusion are not pursued. And then the next line is Jamdang Ninje Shegu Lembar Shok. Through love and compassion, may their mind streams soften. And that word lembar is the same word that's used when leather has become stiff. If you've ever had much to do with leather, when it gets wet and dries, it gets stiff. I know that from growing up around horses, and our saddles would get wet and then they get very stiff. So the word lembar is when you put oil on that leather and it softens. It's the same word. So what's interesting to me in those lines is that our gods and demons, our hopes and fears will continually arise. That's their nature. They come up, they arise. However, self-clinging and illusion are not pursued. That's what it says. So it's really the moment of power, I guess you could say, or the moment of empowerment is when they come up, you have the choice whether to pursue them or not, whether to grasp onto them, follow them, cultivate them, feed them. And so in this case, it's talking about how then with love and compassion, their mind streams soften. So through the feeding of our demons, through meeting that which arises with softness, with love and compassion, then it evolves. So all of our gods and demons will continue to arise. In other words, we will continue to be triggered by various events and situations. But our point of power, our point of choice is whether we follow that or not, whether we pursue it. And we can meet them with love and compassion, with nurturing, and then they evolve and they integrate and become part of the psyche rather than something that's separate and fighting with itself.
So I thought I would point out those lines. Yeah, so that's the Chöd from Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. And the story of this Chöd is that he received it in a dream, which is how Rinpoche received many things, many teachings. He wasn't an ordinary dreamer. Most of us are kind of processing the events of our lives and our day, sometimes old issues, sometimes more recent, in our dreams. But Rinpoche's dreams were not like that. And he actually said to me, he said, I do have one siddhi, one power, and that is my dreams. And he dreamt just amazing things throughout his life. Whole recipes for certain kinds of medicine, like with maybe 35 different ingredients and how to make it in a dream that he could write down afterwards. He dreamt practices, and he went to other dimensions in his dreams. So in this particular dream that the Chöd came from, he dreamt that he was in a field facing south, and there was a whole group of Westerners in front of him. And those Westerners were holding Chöd drums and bells. And at that time, this was in the 1970s, Westerners didn't have Chöd drums and bells. Nobody did. And so he thought in the dream, oh, that's odd that they have drums and bells. But then he thought, well, but I don't. And then a woman stood up in the crowd, and she was wearing a long dress, kind of like a gypsy dress. She was sort of neither young nor old. And she came toward him with a drum. And the drum was more like a shamanic drum that has just one skin on it instead of the double-sided drum. It was just a single drum, but it had the things that hit on either side. And she offered him that to practice with. And he thought it was strange, but he still took it. And in that moment, he thought about his actual Chöd drum, that was his drum, that he had been given and that he had left in Sikkim, when he left Sikkim to move to Italy. And it was the drum of Dokensei Yeshe Dorje, who was a great terton, and actually the terton for Zimbarangdral, the practice that we have established at Tara Mandala. And so he was feeling a little sadness, like, oh, I don't have my drum. I don't have that drum. But in any case, he picked up this drum that she had given him and a bell, and they began to practice and sing. And they knew this Chöd. And again, he thought, that's weird. Westerns don't know Chöd. And what they sang is this Chöd that I just sang. And it's a combination of the Khandro Kejang Chöd from Jigme Lingpa, and also from a Kama text of Machi Glapdrin's actual writings. And then there's a piece in it from a sutra. And so it's short, as you can see, but it contains all the elements that Chöd practice needs to have in it. And it became the Chöd that I learned. It was the second one that I learned. Actually, the first one I learned is called Naro Sangchu, from the Kargyu lineage from Naropa. And in any case, I learned this and started to learn it in about 1979, and then continued to learn it and practice it with Rinpoche, sometimes in very strange circumstances. One time in Marigar, his center in Italy, he went out at sunset, and we just went with him, and he just went to all these different places on the land in the dark. And we practiced Chöd in all those different places, just kind of crashing around and through the fields and trees and so on. And really what he was showing was how to do the Chöd pilgrimage, to go to difficult places and practice in lots of different circumstances. which I did in 2012. Went to 40 different places in India, Nepal, and Sikkim. Actually, that place where Rinpoche's drum was is one of the places I practiced in. A lot of charnel grounds and difficult places. And you do that to confront your own demons, to confront your fears. Because it actually is scary in those places when you're out there alone all night. You actually do get to meet your demons. And so that was actually a very interesting experience that I had then. And it's part of the Chöd lineage. It's called the Dulshuk pilgrimage. Dul means to sort of subdue, and juk, to go through. It's usually translated as vanquishing conduct. So I am going to answer some questions now. I see there's some questions that have come up. Now, somehow I'm seeing a few. Many demons came up, and I allowed them to come without resisting, and they did soften and evolve. Wow, thank you. And then Dina said, my question is that I just got a Kongling and would love to use it, but I can't make it sound no matter how hard I try. What would be the problem? What am I doing wrong? It depends. It depends on your Kongling. Some Konglings are really hard to play. You hold the Kongling like this, and you play it out of the side of your mouth. Don't try to play it like a trumpet or something. And if you can practice by kind of going out of the side of your mouth. And what Lama Wangdu did that I noticed is before he starts, he sticks his tongue inside. And somehow it helps that moisturizing helps. And then you lift it up. It's not down, it's up. And then so it's a kind of way that you're doing that. And you may just have to practice. And it could be that it's not a good Kongling for you. Sometimes some people can play a Kongling and other people can't play that same Kongling. So if it's really, you just can't get it to work, then you might have to trade it in for another one, if that's possible. Oh, there's someone from South Africa. How do I get the lung for the Chöd practice in the West? You get that. You can get that from me. I give that periodically. We have times when I offer a series of lungs, which means oral transmissions that authorize you to do the practice. And so just be aware. I usually do that maybe 3 times a year. And I always do the Chöd when I do that. And then we have an online course that you can take and learn how to do it. And we do have this practice day coming up that I think Drimé put in the link to that. If you know it, you can do that day with Carla. You usually don't learn the Chöd in your first retreat. It's too much. How can we properly practice Chöd in the heart of the city? Yeah. Well, usually you don't do that because it could create wrong view for others. Chöd is usually done in lonely places. Sometimes, like in Nepal, you see people doing it around the Great Stupa in Bodhanath or places like that. But those are Buddhist places where people understand what it is. It's always important not to do a practice and kind of make somebody mad by doing it, because then that creates a negative karmic link for them with the practice. And so try to find a place where you can do it without disturbing people. You could do it on the beach. If you live near the beach, there's usually enough noise at the beach with waves crashing, especially if you go to a little bit separate part of the beach, to do it there, even if you're in a town, or go into the mountains or somewhere out in the country to practice it. If you live in a town and you want to practice in your house, you can usually do that, but just don't do it at night or when people are trying to sleep. I mean, when you think about it, people play music and so on. If it again is very disturbing to others, you know, people are in different circumstances. Sometimes the walls of your apartment are thin. Then you could sing it without using the drum and the bell and just keep your rhythm. It is good to use the instruments because the instruments are really part of the Chöd. But if you can't, it's better to do it without the instruments than to not do it at all. Oh, there's someone from Bhutan. Pema Dorje, that's nice. It says Oregon. Okay, so I'm going to answer some questions about parenting today. Because I got a bunch of them. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to answer them. And I think, you know, there's not so many Buddhist teachers that are parents, and especially mothers. And so people that know that I'm a Buddhist teacher and I'm a parent are thinking, oh, I'm going to ask her because she actually knows what it's like to be a parent. Because if you're not a parent, you don't know what it's like to be a parent, even if you think you do. How to engage with the deep shadows that come up when parenting. I'm uncovering so many traumas and conditionings that I have from early childhood and never knew I had. Yes, so parenting can be an unexpectedly triggering experience that triggers your own childhood. And so what I would suggest for this person who asked this, name is Cynthia, is to do feeding your demons practice with what's coming up, be it anger or resistance or depression. I don't know what's coming up from your trauma, but feeding your demons could give you real insight into what that is. And also, excuse me, help you to work with it. I'm seeing some messages now coming in. So that's one parenting question. How to engage with discipline for children in a way that's aligned with the Dharma. Yeah, that's important. Discipline for children needs to be like a firm hand in a velvet glove. For children, structure is really important, and consistency in the parents. So if there's two parents, they need to agree to support each other if one of them disciplines the child, not then to undermine the one who's disciplined the child. In other words, one says, no, you can't have that candy. And then the other one says, oh, it's okay here. That's not okay. You have to kind of be together as a unit and maybe discuss some of your differences and then decide how you're going to handle those in advance of it happening, because otherwise it's really confusing to the kids and they'll play you off against each other. I think my main advice to parents is focus on encouragement rather than discipline and criticism. Nurturing and encouraging your children, focusing on what they're doing well rather than what they're not doing well. And that might seem kind of obvious, but it's not. And I had this experience myself where for some years I would think, well, if I don't correct my children, who's going to? So I better focus on what they're not doing okay, because nobody else is going to do that. And so I became quite critical of them. And then at a certain point in raising my children, I heard from someone, and I don't even know where she got this information, but she said that the most important thing is to point out positive things your children are doing, because it then shows them the direction to go in. And actually, this is used in training dogs. Not that children are dogs, but you know, there's a book called No Bad Dogs. So there's no bad children. There's only parents who don't know how to work with the children in an effective way. And so I started encouraging them. And it was around the time when they were becoming teenagers. And they would be critical of me. And, you know, you don't know anything. You know, you're stupid or you're whatever. And instead of reacting to that, I would point out something positive that they had done or said, or a quality that I saw in them. And they would kind of look at me like, what? I just said you're stupid, and you're telling me it was great that I cleaned up my room, you know? But it was interesting how it worked. And they all went through teenagehood. Is that a thing? Or their teenage years, I guess you could say, without getting into major trouble. And I think it was because of that, by really focusing on the positive and like, okay, I see this talent that you have, you know, you could follow that, or you did that really well. It was great how you spoke to so-and-so. And that also builds their self-esteem, which is really important for anyone, but especially for kids that really, they don't know if they're good or bad or how they're doing, kind of. And so by encouraging them, they begin to get a sense of a positive feeling about themselves, so they don't develop self-hatred. So that's my advice on that. How to share the Dharma with kids. Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I sat with as a mother, because I went directly from being a nun to being a mother in less than a year. And so I was very, you know, involved with the Dharma. And so there's a few things that I learned and did. One is there's a fun game that you can play with kids that's also a way to teach the Dharma, which is creating an altar. An altar could be created in their room. If they share a room, there could be 2 altars in the room, each one having their own, or there could be one that they share, and then have them relate to that altar. And it could be very free, you know, like it doesn't have to be like a Buddhist altar in a certain way. It could be just a cool feather that they picked up, or a shell from the beach. My daughter Cherub, my oldest, had very elaborate altars when she was a child that included Saint Francis and Christ and Buddha and Tara and Krishna. I think all were there. And she would line up her stuffed animals to have them listen to teachings. And so creating altars is fun, and you can do that also as a game when you're outside. And then also teaching about the 5 families, getting candles of the 5 colors, and teaching about the 5 Buddha families and the transformation of emotions into the 5 wisdoms. And if you don't know what that is, then read Wisdom Rising, my last book. Wisdom Rising is all about those 5 families and the mandala principle. The mandala principle gives them a framework or a template to see the world in, because it relates to the elements, it relates to seasons, sense perceptions, colors, elements, and obstructed patterns or emotional patterns and wisdom. So that's a great thing for kids to learn. Another thing is compassion, to teach them compassion, not killing, to, if they step on a bug or something by mistake, to blow on it and say some mantras and pray for it, and not to kill. Kids actually can have a tendency to kill and to hurt other little creatures like insects or frogs or cats or whatever. So it's important to point out to them that that being feels, and that being has parents. Like, what will happen if this little baby squirrel doesn't go back to its mother? So teaching compassion is important. I think a prayer before meals is important, that there's a moment when the family sits down and stops for a moment. When my kids were growing up, we did just a moment of silence. It wasn't just a moment. Maybe 30 seconds or something. And we just all kind of exhaled and then felt gratitude for the food before we started eating. And then when I started Tara Mandala, I wrote the prayer before meals. Maybe you can find that and put it in. I think it's on our website. Prayer before meals. I receive the sustenance gratefully, appreciating all the forms of life that have offered themselves for my benefit. I eat and drink with awareness and experience of one taste, recognizing my body as a sacred mandala. May my actions be beneficial and relieve suffering. May all beings, without one exception, have happiness and the causes of happiness. Alalaho. You always say alalaho at the end, which means, isn't it wonderful? So that's what we do now. And actually all my grandchildren know it, and we do it as a family. I think sitting down together for meals is important, at least once a day, dinner probably. And we do also something where we share a highlight of the day and a challenging moment of the day. So the conversation at dinner has some meaning, and sometimes just the highlight or just a gratitude. But it gives kids a moment to sort of think about their day and to say something. The challenge also helps them to share maybe something difficult that happened, so the parents know. So what happened? So that's a few things, a few answers to questions. I'll answer a few more while I'm here. Here's one on how do I practice as a mother. It's a young mother. Kids are 1.5 and 4.5. Really interested in how I did it. So I always practiced as a mother, and sometimes it involved having kids crawling on me, literally tearing down my shrine as I was sitting there. And what I did was not make that a bad thing. In other words, just be relaxed about it. I put it back together afterwards, and just did my best to be able to concentrate on my meditation as they were crawling around me. Obviously, you can't just leave them. They have to be with you so you can see what they're doing. But to be relaxed about practice, and also to change your definition of meditation. It's not going to be maybe quiet, but to practice as you are with them. For example, if you're nursing a child, you could visualize that you're nursing all beings as a way to develop bodhicitta while you're nursing. And again, that idea of teaching them compassion in various ways, and also interdependence. That's a good Buddhist concept of how one thing affects another thing. That's something you could teach. But in terms of your own practice, I did try to do some short retreats while my kids were young. I found I couldn't be away more than a weekend. I would miss them too much. So I didn't go for very long, but just to have some time. And then as they got older, I could go for longer. And so I could really dedicate to practice. I do think that you need to, as they get older, actually find a time to practice without them crawling on you. And that requires some organization. And then the older they get, the easier that will get. Practicing with them is also good, to do just breathing, being present. There's books on practicing mindfulness with kids, and actually quite a few pretty good books on Dharma and kids and how to practice with children. And we have had in the past, we haven't done this because of COVID lately, but we have a family retreat at Tara Mandala, which is great. And the whole family comes, whatever shape and form your family has. And then the parents do things together and talk about parenting and also have time by themselves. And the kids are divided into age groups, and the teenagers do a vision quest, and the younger kids often will do a play. We did like the life of Machi Glapta, the life of the Buddha, and so on. We did one about Tara, her story. But we're not doing that this year, but probably next year. Then there's one about when you know in a relationship that you need to separate. And this person said people are telling her that she needs to stay with her partner because of the kids. And so I think that's always a difficult call to make. I think if you feel that the interactions between you and the other parent are detrimental and causing trauma to the child or children, it's better to separate than to stay together. And then to really try to facilitate the relationship of the other parent with the child. In other words, don't try to keep them away from their children as because them or something like that. Of course, if they're abusive, you have to try to protect the child. But one way I thought I would mention this is how do you decide? If you close your eyes and you think about staying with that person, and you have a scale of 1 to 10, of 10 being definitely stay and 1 no, don't stay, and see where am I on that staying, and then going, separating, where does it come to? And if it's very clearly like a 7 to go, then you should go. I was divorced twice, and both times divorced from the father of my children. The first time from the father of my daughters, and the second from the father of my son. And I'm in good relations with both of those fathers, and we have holidays together. We're friendly, and I've cultivated their relationship with their father. I didn't want to, really couldn't live with them, but I tried to cultivate the relationship and never say anything bad about the other partner, or try not to, but to point out their qualities, so that helps the children, because if they feel conflicted and like they have to take sides, that's really not good for them. Okay, so I think that's what I'll do for today. And thank you, everyone. Hi from Russia. Wow. Yeah, the Russians must feel very isolated right now and worried that they are going to be isolated from the rest of the world like they were for so long. It was so nice for them to be able to get out of Russia, and also for us to get into Russia, where I went to teach. So, yeah, so nice to be with you, beloveds. And it is always a pleasure to do Lama Live and feel you out there in the ethers. And so let's take a moment now and just dedicate the merit of our time together. And offer that merit out to all beings everywhere. Merit is the positive energy we cultivate, accumulate. Thank you, everyone. And we will maybe take some of the questions that were written into the chat this time that I didn't get to. We could add those to the questions for next time. And Drimé's back, and she's in Poland. So maybe you can give us a little report from Poland before you make your final comments. Just I always find it really interesting to hear because you're really on the front of the war in Ukraine. And so if you can kind of paint a picture a little bit of how it is there, that would be helpful, and maybe how it is for you personally.
Thank you, Amla. Yes, definitely the situation is not changing in a way that individuals are most helpful for people coming from Ukraine. As for our government, I cannot say many good things, but thanks to big hearts of people, Ukrainians have warm homes to stay and food and clothes. And I also want to thank you, all of you, really, who sent your generous offerings to the Polish Sangha. I know that the Polish Sangha is supporting many people and also little organizations. So, it's growing in numbers all the time. So people are still coming in to Poland. So please continue to keep those people in your prayers and send them love, peace, and warmth all the time. Thank you so much.
Maybe you can put in that link to, I think it's a PayPal link, if people want to give to the Sangha.
Sure.
That what's happening is there's money going to these big organizations, but there's a lot of small organizations that aren't getting that funding, that are doing very direct support on the ground, like cooking food or housing people and so on. And so our Sangha is taking the funds that we send to them and to those organizations or directly to those people.
Yes.
And I think how much has been sent so far? It was quite a bit, I heard.
Yes, around $4,000.
Yeah. So it's nice to see these Europeans tuning in from Portugal, Finland, Europe, Croatia, Sweden, Germany. Yeah, so maybe put that link in for people who want to give. And yeah, great to be with everyone today. And I'll see you next week. And let me know also in the questions, you could say, like I did Chöd today, you could say, hey, will you do, or will you teach about, or, what ideas, what you would like to hear from me. Today I did something on parenting. If you'd like to hear me talk about something else that's helpful to me to know what you would like me to share about on Lama Live. Thank you. And you can go ahead now, Drimé.
Thank you, Lama. Thank you for your generosity in offering us these precious teachings. And we make many aspirations for your long life and continued good health. Thank you, Jeremy, Kandro, Constance, and Ben, for all your efforts to make this event happen. Dear audience, thank you for sharing your time and staying connected. We appreciate you. At this point, I want to remind you that you have the opportunity to make a Dana offering to Lama Tsultrim. And for those of you who may not be familiar, Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word meaning generosity. Dating back to the time of the Buddha, there has always existed an interdependence between those who offer the teachings and those who receive them. Dharma teachings are traditionally offered on the basis of Dana, which is offered to a teacher in recognition of the precious gift that has been given. Thank you, everyone. May we meet again and again on the path. May all beings benefit everywhere.
Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re